Scaling your painting company past $1 million a year is one of the most important milestones as a business owner. Over the years, I've talked to thousands of painting contractors about why you started a business, and the overwhelming answer is for freedom, which includes financial freedom, and $1 million company will get you that, which we'll talk about in this video. We're gonna get into when is it time to start to hire your team, what are the things that you need to have in place to hire your team, and what do the numbers actually look like. Before we get to that, my name is Eric Barstow. I'm the founder of Painting Business Pro, where for the last decade, I've been coaching painting contractors all over the country. I've helped hundreds of people build $1 million painting business. I also run National Painting Group, where we partner with people and build painting companies, where we do over $17 million a year in business. Let's jump in. So before we get into any of that, let's talk about why 1 million. Besides that, it's a flashy number and it sounds really good and it's the first 7 figures, why $1 million? Why $1 million a year is because that's the number that you need to create freedom in your business, which is why I do what I do, is to help people create freedom with a business. So freedom for me means you've got control of your time and you've got financial freedom, because control of your time without financial freedom is not freedom at all. There's a lot of unemployed people who have all the time in the world but no money. So we want to have both. And you need to get to at least $1 million a year to have both, because to have freedom of your time means you need other people in your business doing the day-to-day of the business for you. You need someone else who does the estimate, someone else who answers the phones and does the admin, someone else who's managing the projects, so that you don't have to. Otherwise, you don't really have total freedom in your business. And we need our business to be big enough that we can afford that team and still make a good profit margin. So I want to break down for you what $1 million painting company looks like, so you can just see what it looks like, and you can see that it's possible, because I know for some people that sounds like a really big number, and even if that's not you, this is a great number to hit and then build upon. By the way, we're gonna cover a lot in this video. This is really high level, but this is exactly what we do with people in our Painting Business Pro training program. We have all of the systems we're gonna talk about in this video already written, already documented, all the training videos already made for you and your team to build your business, build the foundation, get your systems right, recruit, train, manage your team to get to $1 million a year and beyond. In fact, we have many members who have built their business to $2 and $3 million and beyond. So if you want help from us, this is literally what we do. There's links in the description to learn more about our program and to apply now. Now let's get back to the video. So we're gonna look at 3 aspects. First, let's look at the team, and then we're gonna look at the revenue numbers, and then we'll look at the expenses and the profitability. So first, the team. You're gonna have 2, maybe 3 employees on your team. The first one is gonna be an estimator or sales rep, and that's the person who's meeting with all the potential customers, providing the estimates, and closing the deals. Then you've got a project manager. Your project manager is the person who takes those signed contracts from the sales rep and handles everything from there, recruiting and managing crews, delivering on the projects, making sure customers are happy, closing out those jobs. The third employee you may have would be an office manager, and an office manager is going to pick up the administrative stuff in the business, which is pretty minimal at this point, and they would be answering the phones and setting the estimates, which is also pretty minimal at this point. So if you didn't want to have that person, which you don't need, you could just have your sales rep answer the phones, and then you can pick up the administrative work to keep your expenses a little lower until you actually need that office manager. Now let's look at the second part of the business, which is the revenue. Like, how do we get that $1 million number? Let's break this business down into 40 weeks and assume that you've got 12 weeks that are really slow throughout the year, which is probably a reasonable expectation. We're gonna be a little bit slow around Thanksgiving and Christmas. There's definitely a busier season and slower season. So to make the math easy, say, what does it take to do $1 million a year in 40 weeks? Now, are you gonna do no business the other 12 weeks? Probably not. You'll probably do some business, but the other 40 weeks, you need to average $25,000 per week to hit $1 million a year. That means your sales rep has to close on average about 5 deals with a $5,000 job size. That means 10 to 15 estimates a week. Your production manager needs to manage those 5 projects a week, which $25,000 a week in sales, $25,000 a week in production for people doing it full time is very attainable and very doable. All right, so now let's look at the profitability. So a $1 million company, we're going to assume that 50% is going to labor and materials. We'll get to that later in the video. And then we've got 6 to 7% going to your sales rep, 6 to 7% going to your production manager, and then let's assume the worst case scenario of 10% going to marketing. So now we're at about 72 to 74% expenses. Then that we've got remaining 6% left for overhead, including insurance, maybe an office, maybe any vehicle expenses, and whatever expenses. Overhead varies a lot company to company based on just how much people splurge on business expenses and versus I only buy what's necessary, which is what leaves us at roughly 20% net profit, and that could go higher or lower based on how much you actually spend on overhead and how much you actually spend on marketing. So now that we know what it looks like, now we want to say, okay, so how do I go from zero all the way up to that $1 million a year? And then really quickly at the video, we'll end with how do we go beyond $1 million a year? So we look at this business in phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is where we're building the foundation. There's a number of things that we want to get right with this business before we start building your team. Phase 2 is where we're actually building the team and bringing on that sales rep or estimator, bringing on that project manager, bringing on an office manager. Before we can get to that $1 million business, we need to make sure that the foundation is solid. One of the biggest mistakes people make with hiring their team is they hire their team into a broken system. So there's 3 really important things that we need to get right in the business before we hire a sales rep or estimator. The first one is marketing. We need to make sure that we've got a consistent flow of leads and potential business coming in so that our sales rep has enough opportunities to sell enough business to make good money. The second thing that we need to get straight is estimating. We need to have a solid estimating system that is measurement based so that your sales rep knows exactly how to price projects by simply measuring the house so that they get a consistent price every single time. And the price they get needs to be at the proper profit margins, which is 50% gross profit. The third thing that we need in place is a documented sales system. So you have a sales process to teach your sales rep when they come on board. One of the greatest mistakes that people make with building their team is they undertrain their team. Employees are grossly undertrained. And in order to train your team, you need to have a system that you're training them on. So we need to make sure that that sales process is documented, it's the way you do it, and it works really effectively so that when that person comes on, you can train them on it and then train to make sure they perform really well. Little side note on this that I think is super important is not to underestimate the impact of your sales rep's performance on your business. If your sales rep is doing 600 estimates per year, if they can get 10% better at sales, meaning instead of selling 30% of their estimates, they sell 40% of their estimates, that's an additional 60 jobs per year. That's an additional $300,000 in sales per year. That's an additional $150,000 in gross profit minus your sales and production commissions. You're looking at an extra $100,000 or so in additional profit in your pocket when your sales rep performs better. So you do not want to undertrain your team because their improved performance makes a huge impact on the net profit of the business, which is the money that goes in your pocket. Now, in order to train your team really well, you need to make sure that you're good first. That's another big mistake a lot of people make is I haven't gotten good enough at sales yet to bring someone on. Get really good at sales because it's unlikely that you're gonna be able to train your sales rep to be better than you. You've got to get to at least a certain level of competence in sales to be able to train someone to be as good as you and then ultimately train someone to be better than you. So now let's look at your production manager and what you need to get straight before you bring on a project manager. The first thing that you got to get straight is, again, the estimating process to make sure you're pricing your jobs correctly. So you're setting up your projects to be profitable, to hit the margins we need. The last thing that you want to do is build your business to $1 million a year at 60% cost instead of 50. I see this happen all the time when I talk to people who are doing $1 million plus in business. One of the first things we look at is what is your gross profit margin and what are you paying out for labor and materials? And so often I see people paying 60, 65% out. If we take our same math from earlier and you're paying out an additional 10 to 15%, you might only be netting 5 to 12% profit, which is actually really common in this business. And it just kills me because if you build a $2 million business and you're only making 150 to 200 grand a year, that is an absolute shame because you should be making a lot more money than that. And it's as simple as making sure that you get your prices right and your margins right. The second thing that we need to get good at before we bring on a project manager is the recruiting process and the process we use to manage our crews, whether that's subcontractors or employees. We need to have systems in place for how we recruit and how we manage the relationships with the people who actually do the work and how we manage the projects from scheduling to pre-job walkarounds, in progress check-ins, and final walkthroughs to make sure our customers are thrilled with the products we're delivering. That needs to be a system with plenty of checkpoints so that when you give that role away to someone else, you can trust that it's gonna be done really, really well. You know you're gonna do it well because you're the owner, but if you're getting it done by sheer effort and force, by overworking yourself to the bone, that's not a system you can train someone else on. And if that is your strategy, then the person you hire is going to get burned out and you're gonna have to replace them over and over and over. So you need to create a system for managing your projects where you reliably deliver an exceptional experience to your customers, and it's in a systematic way. Once you have this all in place, number one, you're gonna be producing great results in your business. You should be making $150,000 a year or more and running the business in a reasonable amount of time every week, not overworking yourself to the bone. So that's the nice thing about building $1 million company is you have to build it the right way from the beginning if you want a chance at getting to $1 million a year. If you don't get your marketing right, or you don't get your sales process right, or you don't get your estimating right, or you don't get your project management system right, well, there's no shortcuts in this business. You're gonna feel the consequences of that when you start to bring on your team because your sales reps are gonna underperform, your prices aren't gonna be good, and you're not gonna be as profitable as you need to be. Your project manager is gonna be overworked and quit on you. And one of the reasons it takes people a lot longer to build $1 million company is they try to move too quickly. It's not gonna work out, and then you're gonna have to go back and rebuild the foundation anyways. And so that's one of the things we do with our partners. That's one of the things we do with our Painting Business Pro members is make sure that people get all these things right so you don't have to do that work twice. It could take 6 months to hire, train, and then fire a sales rep or project manager just to get back to the same spot you were before. And losing 6 months is painful. Doing that twice is really painful, and it could set you back 2 years, which is just brutal. So getting these things right from the beginning is critical to building your team. Then we get into phase two. Phase two is where we're going to actually hire a sales rep and a project manager, and we're gonna do it in a particular order. We always hire the project manager first. So let's assume you're really good with marketing, your estimating's dialed, your sales process is really effective, like you have a high sales rate yourself, and it's a documented process, and your production is really efficient. You're delivering an amazing experience to clients. You're doing it with very efficiently yourself. Your crews are solid, reliable, and happy. That's the foundation we have. The first thing you're gonna do is hire a project manager. Why? Because if it's your first time building your team, there's a pretty good chance that you're gonna fail. There's a pretty good chance that even with coaching, even with all the support, you're gonna make a wrong hiring decision, or you're gonna undertrain someone, or there's gonna be some mix-ups and you're gonna turn over. I know it happened for me. I have failed more than anybody in this business that I've talked to. All right, so failure's gonna happen, that's okay. But if you hire a project manager and they fail, well, you can step in and fix the project. If you hire a salesperson and they fail, there is no business. So the reason we hire someone is to free up our time, right? You're already working 40 hours a week. Why are you hiring someone? Well, because that takes 20 hours to production, 20 to sales. You're freeing up 20 hours a week. So if we free up 20 hours a week for production by hiring a production manager, you can double down on sales and increase sales. Because when we hire someone, our expenses grow. So we want our revenue to grow so that, yes, you have higher expenses, but because the business has grown, you're actually making more profit also. If we hire a project manager first, we can do that. If we hire a salesperson first and they don't perform well, your sales actually goes down and your business becomes less profitable. We don't want to set ourselves up for that possibility. There's not really any downside to doing project manager first. So that's what we're gonna do. Let's hire a project manager first, spend 2 to 3 months recruiting the right person, spend 3 to 6 months training that person, then we hire the sales rep, we do the same thing. Now we've got ourselves our first 2 people who have basically taken 90% of your workload off your plate, and it's been replaced with the time you have to spend working with them. So now that you're running $1 million company, you're meeting with your key people every week in a one-on-one meeting and probably a team meeting, and then you're checking in with them throughout the week. What you don't want to do is constantly babysit and be there all the time. What you do want to do is keep training and developing your team. When you have higher performing people, they require even less of you. So before you go and build a bigger team and add more people, it's really worth investing more into training and developing your existing team because as you train and develop them, they perform better, you make more money. Because they're higher performers, there's less management required. All right, and that's how we ultimately build a business that gives us freedom of time. We have other people running the day-to-day operations of your business. You transition into a coaching, leadership, and support role, and from there, you can decide what's next. You could scale marketing and add another project manager and another sales rep, and that's how you get to $2.5 to $3 million a year, and you can continue that path up to $4 or $5 million a year, or you can use this foundation as a launch pad to go and do all the other things that you want to do with the freedom that you have created for yourself in your life through business. That's the process we use to scale people to $1 million a year plus. You can do it too. The fastest way to do this is to start getting these systems. There's a ton of places that you can learn sales and project management and all that stuff. Or if you want to do it faster, check out Painting Business Pro. We'll put the link in the description below this video. If you have any questions, drop a comment below. If you like the video, let us know. Hope it was valuable for you, and we will see you soon.